Funding for this channel is provided by viewers like you. Thank you.
What's up, punks? As of today, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's fall, baby.
Hey, come up in your house and do a little spooky dance.
Also, as of today that this video is being uploaded, September 25th, it is National Comic Book Day. Happy National Comic Book Day! I figured what better way to honor this day that celebrates the art, the artists, the stories of comic books than to share with you my top 15 graphic novels of all time. And so without further ado, let's just hop right into the list. It's not in any particular order except for the first one because this graphic novel creator is what got me into graphic novels. Number 1, Nimona by N.D. Stevenson. Now, Lumberjanes was the first graphic novel slash comic that I've ever read. My online friend Dana sent it to me out of the absolute blue in 2014. I still think about that random act of kindness to this day. Dana, I can attribute this entire shelf to you. Thank you so much. I don't have the exact copies that she sent me anymore since moving to Belgium, but I am going to be repurchasing and reading all of them because there's like 50 now or something. One of the original creators of Lumberjanes was N.D. Stevenson, and so when he came out with his own debut, Nimona, it was a no-brainer to pick it up. This is one of the funniest, most fast-paced graphic novels that I've ever had the pleasure of reading. It's like a game of D&D, but with so many more cozy elements. It's mischievous, it's silly, it's cute. Our protagonist is a shapeshifter and she goes on an adventure with a lord. I read this one almost 3 years ago, so it's definitely time for a reread. And 'tis the season, am I right? So again, thank you to Dana, because if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have discovered this one or literally any of these graphic novels. If you like fantastical adventure and also laughing, pick this one up. Next, Hostage by Guy DeLisle. This is another one of Baby's first. There's flowers being pressed in this. It's a leaf. Fall, baby! There's more? Fall. Fall cute. Oh my god, there's so many. As I was saying, this was also one of Baby's first graphic novels, and it was my introduction to the concept of graphic memoirs. I had no idea that comics could be nonfiction. This one takes place in 1997 and follows the story of Christophe André, who was a Doctors Without Borders administrator and who was kidnapped and handcuffed to a radiator for a significant amount of time. I read this one a few years ago, but what still resonates with me to this day was the feeling of confinement and impatience that this book gave me. Following Christophe's experience, I remember feeling like I was handcuffed to that radiator with him. I felt trapped in that room with him, just waiting for answers and some kind of escape. This one really sparked my love and interest for graphic novels, as well as showing me the power of pictures in enhancing a story, because it was the repetitive columns that really got me feeling that way. Next, I have to take it from my favorite shelf, because it's not just a favorite graphic novel, it's a favorite period of all time, and that is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi and translated by Matthias Fripa, Blake Ferris, and Anjali Singh. So when I was in film school, we analyzed the animated adaptation of Persepolis to the bones. I already talked about this book and that movie as well in my movies that are better than that book video. This is not one of them. This was just one where I felt that the movie did the book justice. So this is also a nonfiction memoir with strong themes of feminism with also historical elements. It follows our author Satrapi coming of age in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. There was just something about this story and how it was told that awoke something within me that I didn't realize was sleeping. It just showed / reminded me of the many beautiful and colorful ways that you can learn about the world around you and the history it's faced. It's not all about dry textbooks. It showed me the importance of individuals and their stories. It's just so damn good, and I also think so damn important. So that's why it sits on my favorite shelf. Speaking of favorites, we have The Shadows by Zabu and Hippolyte. Our story starts with refugee 214 who is sat down with an immigration administrator to tell his truth, so to say. Surrounding refugee 214 are the ghosts of this truth, the ghosts of this story, and they're urging him to not leave any details out, to tell his full truth. The characters in this book all wear masks and no specific countries are named, which I feel like not only strengthens the story, but it also, I think, will aid in the timelessness of the story. Although pretty obvious who one of the countries is. Not only do you experience a harrowing tale of how difficult it is to uproot your life in order to start a better one for yourself, but there were also chilling themes surrounding xenophobia and capitalism, and how both of these things dehumanize the characters that we're rooting for, which then shows us that those things are dehumanizing real life people in the world around us. The end of this one covered my entire body in chills. I had to just sit in silence and process what I read, and then I threw it into my husband's lap and demanded that he read it immediately, which is exactly what I'm gonna do with you. The art is so unique and beautiful and impressive. This entire thing is impressive. I simply could not recommend it enough. I'm still not over it. Okay, so we've been dealing with stories that are on the heavier side, so if you're looking for something a little more light, allow me to recommend This One Summer by Jillian Tamaki and Mariko Tamaki. So this story follows two friends across 10 days in summer in their lake houses in Owago Beach. Now within this one, there is a subtle underlying flavor of familial complications and trauma, but most of the book was just such a realistic and honest portrayal of two 12-year-old girls enjoying these 10 summer days holidays. The vibes are immaculate. It was perfectly mundane. It remains youthfully light throughout. Oh my gosh, does this one feel like summer when reading it. I have never felt so summery while reading anything before. So I can imagine myself revisiting this every summer to come to kind of reignite those sunshiny feelings. But I could also see myself coming to it in the winter times to kind of thaw out that seasonal depression. This one was truly nourishing for my inner child. It just encapsulated girlhood in such a great, true way. Our characters act and talk like kids. It was simple, it was warm. I just loved my time with this one. Every second I adored. Now, if you want to talk wholesome friendship, up next we have Snapdragon by Kat Leigh. This is a magical realism story about a girl named Snapdragon who befriends her town's local witch. In doing so, she discovers her own magic. This is another story where the kids act like kids. We love to see it. There's also effortless and wholesome trans representation sprinkled in here. There's animal bones. There's a supernatural fox. There's lesbian love. This is middle grade, and so it met the bill of being light and fun as expected, but it also had such loving themes and truly came full circle, making it a complete story. Another great one to read if you want to get in touch with your inner child. And so if you're a magical realism person, you might also enjoy Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley. You are most likely already familiar with this creator, seeing as O'Malley is responsible for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World Story and Universe. I've read a few things by him, all of which I liked so much. Special shout out to the Snot Girl series because, oh my gosh, I'm crossing my fingers that a 4th volume comes out. But Seconds by him is a personal favorite of mine because it holds the theme of the grass is not greener on the other side, the grass is green where you water it. That's one of my favorite themes. I'm a sucker for that theme. And so this story has that night before Christmas kind of feel where our protagonist finds a way to make changes in her timeline and can then see the consequences through. And as she gets completely swept up and lost in this idea of making her life perfect, each new decision creates a whole new kind of unsavory unraveling. So she has to go on this magical adventure to get her life back to the original plot. I remember this one being playful and snappy like all things Brian Lee O'Malley, and I remember being moved by the theme, so I still think about this one years after reading it. Speaking of themes that punch you in the gut and stay with you. Next, I Kill Giants by Joe Kelly and J.M. Kenimura. This is another one of Baby's first graphic novels. I think I read it in 2017 and it is still right here. It's about a little girl named Barbara who hunts giants, finds giants, and kills giants. This is another story that I feel the movie did justice for. Both of them Falcon punched my heart into a million little bite-sized pieces. It holds themes surrounding trauma and coping with trauma without spoon-feeding anything to the reader. As Barbara is fighting both real and imagined monsters, sometimes we struggle to understand which is which. Much like real life. If you liked the book or the movie A Monster Calls, I think you'd get a kick out of this one. Who knew that such an action-packed graphic novel could be so tender? Not me. Next, Lighter Than My Shadow by Katie Green. This is another graphic memoir about our author Katie who suffered from an eating disorder, and so this is a hand-drawn story of that struggle and her road to recovery. Online I read that it took her almost 5 years to create this mammoth of a tale, and it shows. It's so raw and real and potent. If you believe that this content wouldn't be harmful or triggering to you, I think this is a very important life to learn about. And honestly, I'm convinced that it could resonate with anybody who's ever suffered from anything, really, because the pain in these pages are direct and effortless to empathize with. I feel like we've all faced the cycles of hurt and failure and trying and failing again and trying again. So thank you so much to sharing your story, Katie, and putting so much work into it because it shows. Next, After the Rain by Nnedi Okorafor. This story is originally part of an anthology by Okorafor named Kabu Kabu, and it was adapted by John Lennings and illustrated by David Brame. This one follows our protagonist Chioma, who's visiting her family in Nigeria, and while visiting, it rains in the off-season, which is already strange enough. But then someone knocks on the door, and when Chioma answers it, she's met with a child with half of his brain exposed. He taps her hand and says, "You're it," like they're playing a game of tag. What unfolds is Chioma's descent into madness that is heavily inspired by Nigerian folktales. This is the only horror-esque supernatural story on the list. I typically reach for cozy, quiet, comfortable stories with mental health themes, so know that there is a reason that this one is the exception, and what an extraordinary exception it is. The art was so vibrant and spectacular. I was especially so impressed with what the artist did with the spaces between the columns. They really just went above and beyond with each and every page, which elevated the experience as a whole. Were all of my questions answered? No. Did I need all my questions answered? Also no. You simply slip into this mystical mania with Chioma and hope that the both of you see through to the other side. I have never read a more adventurous slice of life chock full of cultural components. Chef's kiss. So maybe you're wondering, after the Rain, what is a quiet story? Next, Feelings by Majid Thap. This is a simple visual journey following Thap's year of emotions. The blurb says, from the saturated highs of early summer to the gray isolation of late winter. I'm still really not sure what it was exactly about this one that got me as bad as it did, but I think a lot of it had to do with how comforting not only the art and colors are within this one, but also how normal it made me feel in the comings and goings of emotions. You know, of the swellings and retreatings of the tides that naturally come with these seasonal transitions. It just made me feel so human and okay and safe in trusting my own emotional journeys that are in this constant flux. This one is without a plot, so if you're somebody that needs a little bit of adventure, if you like fast-paced things, I don't think this one is for you, but it was so very much for me. It really is just in the summer I do this and I feel this, and in the winter I do this and I feel this. But trust me when I say that it is so much more poetic than that, I'm not doing it justice. I loved this one and I plan on giving it a reread as each season changes to aid in these shifts that I often struggle with. Next, Bloom by Kevin Panetta and Savannah Ganucho. This is a YA contemporary queer fiction that follows Ari, who works in his family bakery. He's meant to find a replacement before he heads off to college, and he interviews many candidates before meeting Hector, a tender, passionate, and content kid who brings joy into every shift of the bakery. Ari and Hector begin to fall in love amongst the flour and sugar and ovens, which leads Ari into reconsidering everything. Now, I picked this one up for a cute, cozy, fun, easy reading kind of escape, which it did. But what I wasn't expecting was it to be as moving as it was, or for it to have themes as strong as it held. It has a splash of don't become deceived by the grass is greener trope, but with the strong support of cherishing your true self and your roots. The idea that listening to your gut, not just what you imagine is objectively correct, will lead you to the most authentic and happiest life possible. This one was comforting and delicious and heartwarming. I cannot wait for the sequel to come out in the beginning of next year. You know I'll be pre-ordering it. There's also a streusel recipe in this one, a muffin topping that I use every time I make muffins, and there's a sourdough recipe in the back that I've yet to try. So you really can't lose with this one in my opinion. The next one was actually recommended to me in the comments several times by y'all, and I cannot thank you enough, because this new favorite graphic novel is as if Heartstopper had a baby with a Studio Ghibli movie, and it is The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen. This story follows a Vietnamese family in the United States as they practice English together through reading fairy tales. Our protagonist Tien wants to come out to his mother but isn't sure what words to use to do so. The premise is simple enough, but the story is so hard-hitting. The ending almost made me happy cry, and the complicated feelings that his mother has surrounding immigration and having two lives that don't quite blend into one also almost had me crying. I loved how the lessons in the fairy tales tied into themes surrounding our characters' actual lives. I'm a sucker for the idea that reading and stories can bring us closer. I'm a sucker for narratives from children's perspectives. I'm a sucker for when shorter tales are integrated into a bigger story to strengthen its themes. This entire thing just made me weep. I felt whimsical, I was truly transported, and it touched my soul. Please read this. The next one is on the more popular side. There's actually a TV show adaptation of it now, but I'm going to include it because one, it was a favorite and I'm not here to lie, and two, I'm here to recommend it to my other girls, gays, and theys, because I thought I wouldn't like it because it's on the more adventurous side, but trust me, that book is Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chiang. This is a story for you, I think, if you enjoyed Stranger Things. It's sci-fi, it takes place in the 80s, kind of, and it deals with monsters, timelines, and badassery. A group of paper delivery girls have their lives turned upside down one Halloween morning in 1988. First of all, the art and the colors, so impressive. Sometimes the plot got a little bit lost on me. I don't read a lot of sci-fi, but it didn't matter. I had a great time. This one gave me Saturday morning cartoon feelings. I would read bits of it every night before bed, and I looked forward to bedtime for this reason. It was such a fun, youthful feeling that it brought me to turn to this one every single day. She was entertaining, she was interesting, there were twists and turns. I think I gasped out loud a couple times as well. I just had a lot of fun with this one. It really sparked my imagination. If you don't understand any of the sci-fi elements, I truly believe that you could enjoy this one through and through, despite its girth, just solely on the girl gang gal palness alone. It was just enjoyable and exciting, and I didn't need much else, but it gave so much more. Now, if you want to stay in this sci-fi space, boom, but crank up the gay. Turn it up to 11. Allow me to recommend On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. Now, if you're not new to this channel, you already know that I'm a huge Tilly Walden fan. We love Tilly Walden in this house. I read 3 of her works and intend to devour everything she's ever created ever. My favorite so far being this one. It follows our protagonist Mia, who gets a job on a spaceship in hopes of finding her lost girlfriend whom she didn't get to say goodbye to. The crew on the ship is full of clear and concise characters, and their collective job is to restore destroyed human relics across the galaxy. Tilly Walden is the master of color palettes, in my opinion. I'm always blown away by how much magic she's able to cram on each and every page. It is absolutely effortless to get lost in her story thanks to her artistic skill and storytelling ability, and how they both go hand in hand and strengthen each other. Not only was this one gorgeous, but it was touching and exciting. It hit all the bases. It impressed me so much that literal seconds after finishing it, I put on pants to go to my local graphic novel shop and buy anything Walden that they may have had on the shelves. I love learning about every character and following the adventures. Leave it to Walden them to take a bleak setting, turn them beautiful, and then fill them with meaningful character connections. With the sprinkle of action, you really get the whole heartwarming package with this one. And so it's a no-brainer that it's a top tier graphic novel in my opinion. And there you have it. Those are my top 15 graphic novels out of all of these that I have read. But it doesn't end here. Please continue the conversation in the comments down below. I find so many great books through y'all, so please let me know what your top tier favorite graphic novels are so that I can add them to my TBR and then I can read them and then maybe I can make a second one of these. Thank you so much to everyone on Patreon who make it possible for videos like these to happen. It is all because of y'all that I can call this my job, and I'm so endlessly grateful for it. So hope you're having a happy fall, and as always, thank you for clicking, thank you for caring, and thank you for being nice. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!